Vaughn, the floor is yours.
Great. Great evening, everyone, and welcome once again to Conversations With, a recurrent web series organized by the Trinidad and Tobago chapter of the Internet Society and hosted by yours truly, Kevin Swift, alongside my co-host for this evening's activity, our Vice Chair of the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago chapter, Miss Jacqueline Morris. And you can see her lovely ponies there. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Kevin, and hi, Robin. I'm very glad to have you here today.
How's everything going?
It's going well.
Good.
So let's introduce our guests to our audience.
Yes, we have to introduce this very exciting, this very prominent guest we have here this evening. But just as a housekeeping note, please know that you can feel free to ask your questions at any time during these discussions. We'll be sure to address them during the course of the discussions as best as we can. And also, if you'd like to make an intervention directly, please use the mic function, the raise hand function, and we will give you the virtual floor at an appropriate time. So this evening, we have with us very specially invited guest, Mr. Robindranath Maharaj, the Director of Networks and Operations at Liberty Latin America. And Robin, or Rob, or Robindranath, he has a lot of experience in this industry, in the telecommunications industry, and he's here to talk to us today about some digital transformation issues, particularly as it pertains to students and business. So first and foremost, Rob, welcome to our Conversations With series. How are you this evening?
Great, Kevin. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, I've been really excited to come on this show today. It's a topic that's really dear to my heart. It's something that, just having conversations with friends, it always comes up. So I thought it'd be one of the best areas to visit is actually ISOC to have these conversations with these like-minded folks. Having them with my wife was a teacher who's not that technical, of course, sometimes kind of goes way over. But I think we could all appreciate it. Yes, I've been in the industry for near 20 years in telecom. In computer industry, about 20 years, working with the cable company as we knew it in Trinidad for 18 years, started with the cable company of Trinidad and Tobago, went on to Columbus Communications, we then changed to Cable and Wireless, and I now work for the parent company, which is Liberty Latin America, which gives me great insights to this more than just the Caribbean. Cable and Wireless, as you know, is just the cable and wireless Caribbean countries, Jamaica, Trinidad, Bahamas, and so on. But Liberty Latin America allows me to have that view into Chile, Puerto Rico, Panama, Costa Rica, right? The technology's there, the culture's there, what people are doing there. So I'm very excited to have this discussion today. Kevin?
Oh, so thanks for giving us that very helpful introduction as to what Liberty Latin America is. I think we are so used to cable and wireless. It's one of these traditional legacy brands that we have in the region since colonial times. And now with Liberty Latin America, as you have explained, there's a wider reach in what is done in the telecommunications sphere. And we can assume that a lot of lessons are exchanged and learned between Latin America and the Caribbean, and specifically with what you do. And right, one of the questions that I would like to get us started with is, what could you tell us about some of the connectivity challenges or opportunities during this time of the pandemic? I mean, we are in year 2 of the pandemic, and a lot of pivoting and digital transformation that was previously identified has happened. What are some of those connectivity challenges that you have been seeing?
Kevin, you hit the nail right on the head when you talked about connectivity challenges. The first thing that happened with COVID was the restrictions and the lockdown, right? So the norm that we knew it, especially in the Caribbean, with traffic, going to the office, having that social interaction on a Friday, going to parties and fetes, now had changed dramatically, and everybody was now just home. There were very different facets of people being home. You had a group of people who were working from home. You had a group of people who were trying to create a business from home because they're no longer working. You had a group of people who are home looking for something to do, whether it be productivity-wise or entertainment-wise. So what we started looking at was, of course, what's going to happen with all this internet traffic, right? The first concern to everyone's mind was, are the pipes going to get congested, right? There's various pipes from you as a user sitting by your computer or laptop or your tablet going all the way out to the internet, right? There's the pipe that goes from you, the user, to us, to our central office, between those central offices back out to Miami or wherever it is the subsea fiber takes us. So first thing as an LLA, we all did. There were reports that was generated to look at, on a granular level, all of these pipes and traffic utilizations, what was happening to them. Globally as well, to try to figure out what's happening with everyone else and what can we predict is going to happen and where do we need to put our focus on. So we saw internet traffic globally raised by 35%, right? Now, if you remember correctly, there was restrictions and lockdowns in the UK and other areas before hitting Trinidad, right? That was, and we heard our Prime Minister talk about it. We're looking at what the others are doing and we're ensuring that we don't make the same mistakes. And coming from LLA, we were allowed that opportunity. So we were able to look at countries like Chile, right, where we have 1 million subscribers, and take a look and see what's happening there. First thing and the obvious thing was that internet traffic was being consumed, but by what exactly? Where was this internet traffic going to? Netflix, believe it or not, was one of those big bandwidth using, bandwidth hogging monsters out there, right? So much so that we had to phone up Netflix and said, guys, let's get ready for this. Let's upgrade our caching network on island. Let's do what we need to do to get ready for this, because you've seen it on Facebook, right? Everyone just started talking about, okay, I've seen all of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. What else is there to watch, right? Or I've seen, whatever is the trend at that particular point in time, whatever it is to watch. So there was a lot of Netflix traffic. And of course, you can understand that when you're going to start looking at Netflix traffic, YouTube traffic, streaming media takes a toll on your network, right? For some companies, of course, Liberty Latin America is full of telecoms and we're quad play providers in most countries. In Trinidad, we're just doing, the internet services, the cable TV services, and the fixed voice. But we have markets, for example, like Jamaica and Chile that doing mobile. Now, what happened there was all of a sudden your mobile traffic drops tremendously, right? Because no one is no longer at the office or on the road to use their mobile data, and everyone is now using your home services. So quickly, we have to figure out how do we take that capacity and repurpose it? Is it possible to repurpose that capacity? In some cases, there were, and in some cases, there weren't. Some cases, it required not just Liberty, but other telecom providers to add more capacity, spend more money behind upgrading infrastructure so our customers would not see that degradation in services.
Okay. And there you were mentioning, for instance, Netflix as one of the drivers for uptake bandwidth. And we can assume that in terms of other contributors, all of the live stream platforms, you could think of not only live stream platforms, but on-demand platforms, the Disney Plus and all of the rest. I'm wondering, what were the trends when it came to more productivity related activities, when it came to, so one of the things that has happened is that we have suddenly found ourselves in these teleworking schemes where we are expected to continue to be productive during the pandemic, and that could have taken a number of different trajectories, because of course there were the companies that were well prepared and already had teleworking practices in place, and then others that had to scramble and find themselves in that place. So what happened in the teleworking sphere? What were some of the recommendations that you can probably share with us based on the teleworking experience across the region, based on what you have observed.
Absolutely. So there was that increase as well too. And again, this is streaming media on things like what we're using now, Teams, Zoom, right? Google Meets. So you also have that portion of the population that had to go to school online, right? So by increasing the bandwidth pipe that we had, we were able to accommodate those. So it wasn't as complex as, say, Netflix and trying to get, servers in-house and everything just to make sure that we have that we can meet that demand. With that traffic increase on the collaborative tools, that sort of took care for itself. When you look at, for example, other tools that we had to keep an eye on. So we talked about Google Meet, we talked about the Teams platform, Microsoft Teams. Sorry, just going back to your question. Your question was in reference to what are the challenges and how we can see people, how businesses and population can improve. So
yeah, exactly that, and particularly as it pertains to productive activities.
Right.
I mean, we have a long-standing reputation here in the region that we are a region of consumers. We consume digital products. The whole question of being producers, and of course, not only producers of digital, but being able to have sustainability along business lines or education lines. Those are some of the things that we haven't spoken about a lot in the past, but have certainly shot to the forefront because of the pandemic. So
what we saw was there was a lot of companies. When you have remote working, especially in the Caribbean, you have most of the remote working is a one-off scenario, right? Most of it. There are the people who work 90% work from home, or you work 10% work from home. There was never really a hybrid for most people, right? You had those one-off scenarios like myself. I have teams based in Chile, in Puerto Rico, Panama. Everyone just like coming out in the office. Although you tell them they can work from home, most times you work from the office, unless the AC guy is coming in. So what tends to happen was there was a preparedness at the level of, when you looked at the bigger companies. Bigger companies were ready for having VPNs for the users. They probably went out and buy more license because they were catered for a subset of the population of their employees, and this now grew, right? This now grew to a proportion of teams that I never thought about, right? When I think about Liberty, we've never, envisioned taking our call center to work from home, right? Immediately, we had to add 100 and something extra license for that. So the bigger businesses and enterprises, they adjusted to that because they were already prepped for it. So they just had to scale. So we got a couple of calls coming in about increasing the bandwidth for them. They said, some of them have managed services from us, so they were looking at VPNs. The problem really existed around the small and medium enterprise businesses. Small and medium enterprise businesses are the guys who are not exposed to that sort of technologies, right?
Correct.
Those are the mom and pop shops who just knew about their job. They did their job well, and they were just focused on that. So they start coming into us asking us, what do I do? I have to put my workers and employees at home, but I don't know how to function. I have these applications and I don't know how they access it. So we had to introduce them to, okay, this is a VPN. This is how it works. It's just like you're sitting in the office. It creates this tunnel. So you go straight to the office, get the resources from the office and back to your laptop at home. Right? And we had to start enabling these small and medium enterprises customers by having these conversations, right? And also looking at the solutions that we can provide, which we provided a suite of solutions to help enable them use things like VPNs for their employees.
All right. Just as a reminder to our participating audience, feel free to drop your questions in the chat at any time. And between myself or Jackie, we will address them. We will raise them at the appropriate moments. And going back to what you were discussing, Rob, so we noticed that there's this disparity between what would have been the larger companies that were scenario planning and looking at transformation, and then you had the smaller companies having to come up with a lot of pivot strategies and trying to figure out how they enter into this dispensation. And one of the things that we can only hope is that these will be long-term measures and not approached or perceived as temporary stopgaps for a present situation, because we in this sector, we know the potential for ICT. We've been speaking digital transformation for years, and we are quite aware that there has been a lot of slow uptake of a number of things. And now the benefit of the pandemic, and I say this in every series, is that we find ourselves where there's a lack of plausible alternatives. Therefore, we are in this space right now where we have to transform to survive. On the question of transformations, now, one of the recurrent issues that we've always seen, it's been on that whole talk about what should I call that? The digital divide, bridging the digital divide. And of course, there's an attendant fear that in doing all of this transformation activity, we forget about the nuts and bolts with the digital divide, where we really have to continue connecting the unconnected. What are some of the observations that you can say about the digital divide? Is it that companies and countries and entities have all been thinking of just doing these transformation pivots and they've left the digital divide activities to the side? What are some of the observations you have on that topic and some recommendations along those lines?
Valid question, Kevin. What I could say is, from what I've seen, just in LLA-wise, we've actually stepped up on trying to close that digital divide, right? There's a lot more strategies. There's, to be honest, a lot more budget has been thrown out, for example, of expanding to areas that they weren't, right? There's that whole, how do we connect to these customers where they aren't connecting today, right? So we've tried to, and yes, with COVID coming along, it fast-tracked that whole transition and transformation process, right? And what we utilized it for was getting there to the persons who was not available before. I can give you a prime example, right? I was working with a couple of people in schools, principals, and so on, and trying to figure out, what's your needs, what's going on in the community where you are. So we basically went to community centers, and I personally went to see these guys, right? Community centers, mandirs, churches, schools, and their principals, and started speaking to them to find out what's going on the ground, right? We found some little pockets of areas where we had people who did not have internet access for their kids to go online, because Flow only reached out the road and didn't come in. And we worked, and I brought it to the senior leadership team. Senior leadership team quickly went on to it and said, yes, that one student will get our service. Robin, we're committing it to you. It's done, right? We've done it for enabling the internet services at schools that wasn't there before, at community centers. So the community where I grew up in South, and I live in the East now, right? I went back there and I was like, what's going on? And they said, some people don't have internet. Let's put internet into that community center. Anybody who does not have internet has to go to school. Let's go there. So that's what I would have expected from, not just from a telecom perspective, Kevin, but really from, where we want to help each other, people to people perspective. How can we help each other through this COVID crisis, right? And if it means that the resources at my disposal is a telecom way, which is the main stream of everything that everyone is going on to. Everyone is either studying online, everybody's working online, everybody's entertaining themselves online. Let me see what good we can do there.
All right, and beyond.
If I may, Kevin,
certainly.
One quick question. One of the issues, because I used to teach teachers, so I am a teacher educator. And
Right.
one of the things that came up over and over and over again is not that we don't have access, because you're talking about the ones where flow didn't reach far enough, but there are
Right.
so many places where flow reaches, but the affordability is the problem with the access.
Totally
A
agree.
lot of, and a lot of teachers in particular got very upset because they were using their phone data and it ran out and they didn't have it. And there was no, funding for them to get additional data. And then, to upgrade when they had to teach online in the virtual, live virtual environment, they didn't have the speed, but they couldn't afford to upgrade their internet so that they could get good speed, so people could they could have the cameras on so the children could see and so on. And that's been one of the major issues, not that there isn't, because ISOC works a lot with community networks and reaching out to places where people just don't have internet, where internet doesn't reach. But what about the places like here where we've got coverage,
Right.
but there's a lack of access because of the affordability?
So very valid point, and it's something that I had raised as well to the senior leadership team. Keeping in contact with the communities, it's something that just not myself, but my colleagues on the senior leadership team and the company-wide were doing, right? Keeping our finger on the pulse as to what's happening. And we found that. We found there was a mix of people coming back stating they couldn't afford, right? They just couldn't afford this $200 and something a day. As much as they really needed it for their child, they couldn't afford. And we came back with a plan of a reduced cost package just for these. You needed to get recommended by the principal of the school, validating that this student was they really could not afford it, and we really want to help them as a school, as a telecom provider, as people helping people. We went out there. We gave this offer to a couple of the principals and have implemented it, right? And there is a valid point, Jacqueline, on having now, you have the internet, but now what about the extra speed? And that we saw that firsthand. We saw people with packages now stating that it looks like we need a bumper, but what's going to happen? So we take this into phases. The first thing that we could have easily done was to look at the schools that we've already had internet for and provided this internet for free, right? Which we've been doing for years. And we've increased their bandwidth for free, right? And we said at your schools, because I know of a few schools that we were talking to, they had their social distancing and classroom setup where the teachers would go to the class and do the virtual sessions there. So we said, okay, if you're doing that and I bump your internet up there, that should capture, a lot of classes rather than we have to go upgrade every single teacher's modems. All right. The other thing that we started looking at is there is, of course, now an increase of bandwidth needs, right? So what we consider the norm for bandwidth utilization for one particular user has now changed, because one particular user 3 years ago was not utilizing Teams on an all-day. 3 devices with Netflix coming on and so on, right? So we started looking at, and this is a balance that every telecom has to look at. We just got a surge of internet traffic usage in that pipe I was talking about. We have to spend some money, and we upgraded that to make sure we had no degradation of service to our customers. Now, after that, and we've settled with that, and we could now have a trajectory of what that traffic is going to look like over the next year or so. Let's now see if we can do an increase in the bandwidth, right, that we have to our customers. So there's something that's actually launched today that we've been working on for some time. And to be quite honest, the delay happened when we got the other lockdown recently with the SOE. When that happened, again, the traffic just climbed back up. I mean, it never dropped. It was, it's like land prices in Trinidad, it just doesn't drop, right, no matter what. So when we saw that, it delayed what we were doing to put that in effect. But we've now gone taken the 100 meg package and increased it to 150 megs. right? Because the norm that we know if it was organic without COVID, that increases, right? The applications we use, the streaming media, everything starts yielding for more bandwidth. What we were looking at before 10 years ago on YouTube is not the same today, right? The SD, HD, 4K requires more. So from our perspective, we know we have to get there. We know we have to increase, so which is why we've been increasing from when we now launch at 5 megs. That was the base package, right? To what we are now. That's when we had 256K DSL systems. Yeah, I'm probably selling on my age there, but
don't worry, you'll sell out mine and Kevin's too.
So it really fast forwarded what our trajectory was for those upgrades, and I'm happy to say today that we've met it. And I employ not just for ourselves but our competitors and all the other telecoms worldwide to do so, right? Because this can only benefit the general public, right? And the reason why I'm so passionate about providing the internet to the general public, and no matter who you take the internet service from, I want the benefit to be there, because you're seeing it prop up now, and this is where it comes down to the business that we were talking about. We're seeing it prop up now of people losing their jobs. And there are a lot more people who are doing cakes and catering on Facebook and social media and Instagram than there was before. Right?
Correct.
This is because people are now out of jobs. I know, my whole thing when I go out to TGIs and so I like to talk to the people who are there, who are serving us. I make close acquaintances with them. And then I realized that, when TGIs closed down, one of them was posting up on Instagram or catering, right? People have the plus, right? What are we doing as not just telecom, right? And the technical people in the country, in the nation, to help these folks? Are we helping them with the tools? I know of a particular group who were just out there trying to help people set up their own computers and give them some computer literacy courses, right? Just to get them out the gate into it. What the business side of Flow has done, because you all know the brand Trinidad is Flow. The B2B team came up with this suite of services that these SME customers and even these mom and pop shops who are now emerging could now take this suite of services that had a startup of e-commerce that you do not need to be a tech guru to launch. You would basically state what you wanted and up pops up a website. There was somebody sitting down on the other end, taking your requirements from you, taking your pictures of the cakes that you've quite lovely baked and decorated, and they put up this website and walking you through e-commerce setup and everything like that. And that's where I think we need a little bit more focus on as a not just the telecom world, but in any technical person, and I'm not saying an organization specifically, that you have that knowledge to share that tools and resources. We need to get it out there, because the economy needs to start going back up. I am so passionate about that. I am a big supporter of buying from these persons who are popping up in their 3-month, 6-month-old business, right? I was for Mother's Day, I insisted that we buy whatever we're buying, buy from these small businesses to support them. It's going to be difficult, and when we do that, we're ensuring that the economy goes back up. And I think everybody needs to come in and join in and just realize this isn't just their fight. This isn't just them surviving, right? If we want a better economy, a better Trinidad for us and our kids in the future, we need to help each other.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we have been pushing is this entrepreneurship. And it seems as if the pandemic was a boon for that, because for all these years we've had all these different government interventions, private sector interventions, trying to get people to be entrepreneurial. And now there's so many entrepreneurs.
Out of necessity.
Correct.
Yeah. So, that's one really good thing. But then there's one other thing that I've also noticed back to teachers, is that you've upgraded the internet, but have we to the house? But a lot of people are having issues with the hardware in the house.
Yes.
And that's something that a member of ISOC is thinking about doing a project about. But is it that Flow needs to come and take all our modems out and replace them with, because most of them are like 55 meg on the Wi-Fi, but you're giving us 150.
Right.
So you've done that upgrade, but it's not reaching, because most people don't know how to plug in a cable, or, I'm cabled right now so that I can get, because my Flow is running at 2 something right now, so I'm very happy on the cable.
Excellent.
I have a relatively new router. It's giving me 90 something off the router, which is okay, but it's not the 200.
Yes.
And yes, I'm in a situation where I know what's going on, and I can go and find a Wi-Fi 6 router and so on, and organize myself and get my proper bandwidth on anywhere in my house. But what happens to all these other people who, yes, we've gotten an upgrade in the speed, but somehow it's not working and we don't know what to do, and we've got our website, Flo's given us our website, wonderful, and so on, but it's kind of a waste having upgraded to the router but not getting it to most people's tablets and laptops in the laptop in the bedroom or the tablet in the children's room while they're doing their homework. What do we do about that? Because that is a huge expense for you guys.
Yes.
Or it would.
Yeah, absolutely. Great topic. And I'll tell you this. So, you hit the nail on the head when you said it's a cost. It's a cost to the business if you were to go and swap out everyone. What we are working on right now are the tools to be installed to be able to give us a sense of what that utilization looks like from a home user's perspective, right? I actually have a test firmware running on my modem at home to test it, right? This would be able to give us the feedback that, Rob is utilizing on average 20 megs of his internet per day. His Wi-Fi signal fluctuates for his son's iPad. His laptop seems to be fine. This is the sort of detail. This is not going into what traffic you're looking at, of course, right? That's a privacy concern. This is about your usage and what that signal is looking like towards your devices, right? Based on that data, we're going to identify where those needs are, where those critical points are, those pain points for those customers. Because you're right, because there are many times that we get these calls from these customers saying the internet is not working properly. And we checked it on our systems, we checked the modem, we checked the areas, everything is fine, what's going on? And it's usually coming back to what you said, it's what's going on at the home. Maybe the modem needs to be upgraded. Now, not in all cases, because it depends on the usage of customers, right, and what they're utilizing it for. So with this tool implemented, once we get past the testing phase, we should be able to give a better picture of which customers need a lot more, and how do we ensure that those wobbly Wi-Fi areas in their house that they're not getting those Wi-Fis, how do we attend to that? Because that's the other part of it too, right? It's making sure that, because I can tell you, in my house, I've been kicked out of my bedroom when my wife started teaching from home. I've set up my office there, and once she started to teach from home, I had to go into the dining room. My son, with his school, has to be in his room. So now you have to ensure that there's Wi-Fi coverage throughout the house.
Correct.
And that's the critical point that we need to look at, and that's why we testing this firmware and this new system. It'll tell us where the pain points that the customer is seeing. We're going to call you up. We're going to say, here's what we're seeing, this and this, and we're going to be spot on. It's like, Kevin, we've seen that most times you have this desktop and every or this laptop, and sometimes it's good signal, but there's most times at night it's not. It's like, yeah, at night I take it to my bedroom and I'm watching my Netflix, and yeah, it buffers. What do I know, Kevin? We have a solution for you. Let's come to your house and let's install a Wi-Fi extender. Let's do a mesh network.
Right.
That's the sort of service that we wanted to get to. Now, and back to this, we always wanted to get there, right? Because this is the conversation we've been having with at an LA level 2-3 years ago, and this just speeds it up because more concerns are coming into the customers realize it's not the network, it's actually customer prem.
Right. So are you saying that we're going to expect to see more smart home packages being rolled out by LLA, the whole question of MiFi and all these things to really enrich the experience, given the real realities that we face in having to manage children's education remotely and us working remotely and all of that?
Correct. It's in testing phases right now, but the intention is to be able to come to your home, set up a nice fully wireless network. In the past, it's been something that's, the general answer has been, well, here's a IT guy we know, calling us. And we've realized that, as Jacqueline quite said, she's fully capable and aware of what the problem is and how to fix it.
Correct.
But not everybody has that knowledge and that skill, right?
Yeah.
So people are sitting down there and they're on their phone, they're in their bedroom through 3 or 4 concrete walls, saying, "My God, this is not working. I'm getting so frustrated."
All right. I mean, even if you say the term CPE to the average man, they have no clue what that is, and the whole question of doing some sort of analysis or review of these things to optimize the internet experience, I truly see where there's a lot of potential there. Jackie, I think
the hard part is that after they do all that, they then go on Facebook and say, "You see this flow internet?" And the thing is, everybody says the same thing for all the providers.
They do. They do.
They're jumping. I don't know if you've noticed that, but people are threatening, "Oh, well, I'm going to try Digicel because I hear my neighbor says Digicel works really well by me." And the same problem happens when they go to Digicel because it's not the neighbor's house, it's their house.
That's exactly, and that's exactly why we need to get into the homes and identify those pain points, right? It's all about ensuring that the customer is aware that, we're not saying it's your issue, it's our issue to work on, right? Together we need to figure it out, right? But from as far as we could have seen before, we only could have measured into that white or black box you provided, which is the cable modem, and that's all we could have seen. And we, I think it was when this system was being demoed, I was in Miami probably about 3 years ago. And, I was just jumping off my seats like, let's install it, let's go. Because this now gives us visibility into the customers. Now that helps us change the conversations we're having with the customer and hopefully change the Facebook comments, right? That's coming out because the customer doesn't think about it like how, myself or Jackie would think about it, that the Wi-Fi signal is low. They would say, my internet service provider is slow. I'm buffering all the time. So
we've got a question from Niran.
And Niran.
Niran?
More comments. Right, so I might be dating myself a little bit here with this one. I believe Richard Griffiths, I'm not sure if he still works at Flu, but I think he was one of your technicians back in the day a while back. But this was when Flu, I think the top cap on the packages, like the enterprise, the top line package was 100 megs or so. Right. And he called me up and he said, "I have a client, and this guy is is a big business person or whatever, and he has this 100 meg connection, and he keeps complaining that he's not getting that speed. Right? Now, keep in mind, this is back in the days of the Linksys WRT54G.
Wow.
And I said, what router does he have? And he says, well, he has a Linksys. I said, well, you do know that the Linksys, the network port is maxed out at 10 megs.
Right, correct. Yeah.
Right? I said he has to go to the Cisco Enterprise line, which is E1000, which has a 100 meg port, and then he will get that from the flow box. You should be able to get that provided. Of course, the flow box and the router port matches.
Yes.
So and then he will get it. And he said, well, maybe I should put a note there that people who take in this package, that when they take the package, they get advised that well, okay, these are the routers that will optimize that speed. So funny enough, it's not exactly a new thing. I think it's new now because a lot of people are getting those faster connections, but the existing infrastructure hasn't upgraded. So, it's like, well, I had the same router for the last 8 years and it was looking fine. I don't understand why I need to upgrade my router now, and so and I think that maybe even simple education, okay, you want to get this package, put it where, okay, you have this package, great, but and there's that simple aspect of explaining, in layperson terms, and maybe even just making some basic recommendations, that goes a long way, because ironically, DigiCell, right, but through the competition anyway, one with the other, but like I remember talking to the digital tech, and the digital tech came, and when he hooked up my sister, he said, well, this is a fiber connection, this is the GPON thing, these are the recommended routers to get the most out of your experience, and he gave a little, well, for this size house, you should put, you should try and position your router, your main router in this part of the house. And that left a very good impression with my sister because she was like, well, even though they put the main connection in the corner of the house, which wasn't optimal, he said, well, because there's fiber that's running, there's a very thin cable, they try to run it close to the wall because they don't want to have somebody actually bending it or kinking it, so that kind of thing. But just added advice, then she came back to me and said, well, there are new technicians said so, and I said, well, yes, you have people downstairs and so on, so you would want to get the router, so having that little extra, kind of goes a long way, even just publishing it on social media or something, because but doing it in a way that is user friendly, is it goes along, in my opinion, that does a lot of marketing, and it goes a long way for you all, just having that basic knowledge base, So, but I will say, it is kind of, while you're talking about it, it kind of brought back that memory of, it's not exactly a new issue, but I think it's becoming more apparent, as I say, with the faster connections, I think now, where unless you gear your system to, you can have a 1 gig connection now, if I'm not mistaken. And if unless your network is 1 gig and your router is 1 gig, then hey, you're going to hit your router and you're going to be down to 100 megs, even if you have a 1 gig pipe coming into your house.
Very valid point. Naran, I take the feedback and the criticism. I am going to take this information back. I'm going to touch base with the CX team and the marketing team and see if they've been doing anything on this. And if not, I'm going to put some effort and work around it. Very, very valid point. Thank you very much for the comment.
Great. So if you don't mind, Rob, we have spoken a lot about LLA and its support for SMEs, especially when it comes to the services suite. And we have spent quite a lot of tonight speaking about that configuration for the home. to support all of these remote activities and everything that we need. Could you just tell us a bit more about LLA's work with other social actors? I mean, there's an extreme need for our social needs to be met in this pandemic, and where we have to stay at home and be in confinement. What has LLA been doing on that front with other social actors, probably with, I don't know, churches and other things of the sort?
Right. So there's a couple of things that I could talk about there. I'll touch a bit on what you've just mentioned, like in churches and the sort. We have provided free internet services to some churches and temples for two reasons. One, so that within the community of where they operate, if there are persons without internet connectivity and need it for whatever reason, they can come there and get it. The second thing as well too is to stream their services live online, right? I would say we've worked with them. There was some persons within the company. So this is not to say that we went as, Flow with a Flow branded logo on a banner or something and said this is Flow doing it. We sat down, basically a couple of us with various stakeholders from churches, from temples and community centers, and had discussions around streaming and had discussions about, okay, we can provide you with this. What are you technically able to stream? In some cases, we had to explain and give them ideas of how to stream, how you can use a laptop and what are the tools out there, right? That was done on the church's side, on the temple side. On the other side of things I could talk about is on the educational side. We've always had this relationship with Pinnacle.com, right? So we've done a lot more work with them during COVID to make some of the content free of charge, make content available, right? To this date, we are looking at another partnership actually, with another company. I can't say too much details, but similarly organization for around education. It's around the same premise of what we can provide and how we can provide it, right? So those conversations are always ongoing. And I'm just using Trinidad examples. We've done this similarly in Jamaica and the other markets, right? It's something we've constantly been looking at, is how can we help support the education? Because when you look at COVID and what it has done, apart from the obvious, the mental and the physical health of a person, that is the big concern. The general concern when you talk to people, it's either apart from the health, is either on the economy or my child's education, right? And these are the two factors that we said, this is where technology becomes an enabler. How can we support? How can we utilize some of these existing partners out there? How can we bring them to light of what they've been doing and have the users utilize them? Right.
When you said Pinnacle there, you really rang a couple of bells to me, because I'm always so interested to hear what we're doing in terms of producing local content. And of course, with Pinnacle being one of these key or these instrumental actors dealing with the education sector and developing content for us. I'm pretty glad to hear that there are these strategic alliances that LLA is forging with Pinnacle and others to promote that, because in as much as we want to further the use and the reach of the internet, it's not just about consuming what's out there. It's about putting out what we have to offer. It's about preserving cultural artifacts. It's about a lot more, and not just for the now, but for the long run, as to who we are as a people, and making sure that we keep these things alive for future generations. I want to revisit another question. I just wanted to raise that we are about in the last 10-minute stretch of this conversation. Of course, all good things must come to an end.
Time flew.
Yes, time certainly did. Right. So the question I had was related to it's going back a bit to the services suite for businesses. We spoke about VPNs and we spoke about setting up web presences. Could we give us a bit more detail as to some of those support services, the auxiliary services to the small and medium enterprises? And let me give you a bit of context as to why I'm putting this again on the floor. Last year, we had a webinar dealing with digital creatives, and one of the poignant statements that were there is that we have digital creatives that they are so focused on on the creativity that the digital side sometimes escapes them, and therefore it'll be very useful to see where other actors and other services come into play to help strengthen that creativity. So VPNs, web presences, what else is there? What else could one expect as an SME, as one who has not been digital all the time, but who has to be digital? What else could be expected in terms of the support that LLA will provide on that front?
First and foremost, I need to talk about the digital help desk that's available, right? There is a digital help desk created for this suite of services that's being offered. As I said, it's basically that communication with the owner or the manager of that small business or medium business enterprise, as you may call it. It's their mini IT department. So you call them up and state, I mentioned, okay, well, you can create a website, you can create an online store, but do you want a business email set up? Do you want a domain set up? Do you want, I don't know, robin.com, Robindranath which I'm pretty much sure is available. I should look to buy it.
No, I was just going to say, we have a .tt.
My apologies, a .tt, right? So whatever domain that we're looking at, they can help with that, and even instructing them and to make them understand what a domain name is, right? And they don't have to do any of the work. That whole registration and getting it done is all done by that digital help desk person. So we've, let's just think it through. We've sat down with Jacqueline, and Jacqueline bakes these lovely muffins. And we've said, Jacqueline, send us some pictures of these muffins, right? Let's put it on a website. Jacqueline, what do you want this website to be called? And she says, well, this is my grandmother's recipe, so I'm going to call it Grandma's Muffins. So, okay, that's it. Grandma Muffins is a domain. We go out, we get the domain, we put it up, we give her a look and feel and say, what do you think, Jacqueline? She said, I don't like the font size. I just don't like it. It's just, maybe make it a little bit smaller. I mean, and we have that service today. And then we go into business email. So Jacqueline says, I want that professional email. I want Jacqueline Morris at, grandmasmuffins.com or .tt, right? So
.tt.
And we create that, right? And then comes our online store, where we said, Jacqueline says, I'm going to do, deliveries on Fridays, no restrictions, of course, are on for that. So I'm going to do deliveries on these particular days. So we said, okay, we started an online store. But then Jacqueline, remembering talking to Kevin about internet security, and goes, wait a minute. I just want to be protected. Sure, Jacqueline, we have secure cloud storage for all your data that's going to be into the cloud. We show her how to utilize that. We have some security tools and cloud security to make sure that all of our data and information is kept secure and kept safe and backed up. Yeah.
I just one fact. Well, I have just one last question, one teeny last question.
Well, I don't have a question. I just wanted to do a comment on Robin's last intervention there. I'm so happy to hear that approach. I mean, we know that transformation is people, processes, and technology, and you've certainly taken on board the people approach. I think in our culture, there still needs to be a lot of hand-holding, and what you've just described is that exact hand-holding when it comes to making these steps. So I'm very glad, I'm elated to hear about that. And let me go right back to Jackie now, in the interest of time, to make that other question.
Well, it's really just a philosophy. That there are people who believe that broadband is a right, a human right, and like roads and so forth, we should have internet as a fundamental piece of national infrastructure. If that happens, a lot of people are saying, well, what would the ISP sell? If, for example, the government decided, hey, we've got to give everybody 30 meg.
Right.
And then, of course, saying, well, obviously there are people who would want more and you would pay for this slight difference in services like what you described. But what do you think really, what do you think in the telecoms field about the idea that broadband is a human right at this point, and we need to make sure that everybody has access to broadband, even if they have no money?
He's a sector rapper, so I love that last point you put there. I'm listening up.
Right. So I'm a firm believer. Yes, we need to get internet to everyone. Right. Yes, I work for a telecom company, but personally, you know, I'm a techie to heart. My 4-year-old is a techie. He has his own YouTube channel with tech. Right. 4 years old. So and people think I'm pushing him, and it's like he's just doing this all on his own, reviewing stuff. And I've seen it more and more. I've seen it more and more that it's something that yes, everyone needs it, because and COVID just shows it. You know, the access and availability of information, which now and then needs to be filtered. That's a different story. But the access needs to be there, right? The access to be able to work remotely, to do schooling remotely, and what have you. If there are decisions beyond our control that the government needs to put in place in infrastructure, then so be it. If it's for the betterment for future, then so be it. If there's a relationship that we can form to deliver those services, because that's what we do, and not when I say we, I just talk about us, but I talk about all the telecom providers, then let's do that, right? Let's figure that out. Let's sit down and say, you know, how can we provide this? Because, you know, what the biggest craze of 2018 was going into, was 5G. And the biggest craze then was, how do we get more of our mobile phone? COVID just changed that to straight 180. There's no longer a wonder about getting the fast speeds on my mobile phone. It's like, why do I need that? I'm home. Right? So if we need to sit with the government of any particular country as Liberty and have that discussion, figure out what we can do. Because remember, Liberty is not just the telecom provider provides services on the ground. We're also own the backbone, the subsea fiber, right? That whole Arcos network, that all those fibers underground that people always talk about, and there's all these memes about, right? That we own that, right? And that becomes part and parcel of what we have to offer. On top of which, there's managed services that we're doing today that we want to go fully in, right? And there's partnerships that we're going across with, as we talked about educational services, and we talked about on the business side. There's also the entertainment side that I haven't touched on something that's up and coming, and I'll leave that for a later date, of a really exciting entertainment system that we're going to be seeing in probably 8 to 9 months.
Rob, any partnership with OTTs?
What I would say, I can't say much on when I talk about new upcoming entertainment. Is what I could say is that what we're looking at is, without going into too much, is we do understand that people are looking at streaming. So let's just put it at that. We do understand people looking at streaming. I think we've seen it for the pandemic. Disney Plus was, I don't know if everyone followed, but it's when they launched, it was just incredible of the amount of people who was just tagging along, right? I mean, this was just being spread. Yeah, son loves it every Friday. What are you watching on Disney Plus, Daddy? So things like that. That's the offering, right? So that's where we need to strike those strategic alliances with, provide those services to our customers.
Okay.
What about providing the opposite way?
Right.
Trinidad and Tobago Plus. to people outside. I mean, we've got our huge diaspora who would love to see stuff like that.
I like that idea. I like that idea. I think it's something that I used to enjoy, right? Do you all remember when we had the local movies at Movietown? When we launched all these directors and producers and actors in their local small movies. You all went to those?
The Tobago Film Festival.
Right.
It's been going. It went online for the pandemic.
Yeah.
It did.
But
Right.
you know, it's just that when I was reading recently about Disney's launch of Black Widow, there was a first weekend, theaters were happy. Second weekend, everybody basically, you know, they've got 80-inch TVs.
Yep.
And a lot of people, 75-inch TVs. You know, you get the neighborhood together, all the kids sit down, and you pay for it once, and everybody sits down with your home theater surround sound,
Exactly.
stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and since we don't have necessarily access into the theater space, because, you know, that's all locked, especially worldwide, that's kind of all locked up, especially in the US. Maybe we should do something like that and just skip the theatrical releases and get somebody to start, get some kind of subscription service going where you can see all our local material and our local shows and some of the things that are going on.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love that idea because there's a piece of bio that I did not put in there, but when I was in my teenage years, I actually used to be heavily involved in drama club and doing plays and opera mode and stuff, which is why I like the Trinidad Film Festival. But I love the idea, John. I mean, if we can help showcase more of the Trini culture, right? And we have talented people in the entertainment industry, which we just need to expose, right? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Marshall Montano, like most of Trinidad. And there's so much collaborations that he has done. And we need to get everybody else on that level and that exposure, right? That's a whole different topic that we can go into. But spot on, yes. But Jacqueline, and Kevin, on that particular point, let's see what else we can do. Let's discuss it. Yeah.
So this is by no way an endorsement, but it's just to state that there's an open call by Rubadiri Victor on having a refocused attempt at a virtual carnival. I think things like these are really what we need to really discuss, and the partnerships that could be forged behind this. I mean, between the creatives, between companies such as LLA, and between everyone else that has some part or some stake in TNT patrimony online. I think these are some of the things that we definitely need to be discussing, because it's not just about the pandemic and surviving the pandemic. We're really talking about our longevity and our sustainability as our country within the digital space. So
yeah.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Agreed.
Okay.
So I don't think we have any more questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't, I would like to ask Niran to tell us who is our guest next week, because he's the one who booked him. And I would like to say thank you very much to Robin for giving us your time. It was a fascinating discussion. It went very, very quickly. I didn't even realize this time was going. It was so fascinating. So thank you very much. And of course, thank you, Kevin, for your stellar job as moderator, as always.
Hats off to you, Kevin.
No, but I'm really glad to have Robin here. It's good to hear a voice from the trenches. When I say from the trenches, I mean, really, you guys in the telecom world, you're doing a marvelous job keeping everything afloat. I mean, everything else is built upon what you do. So I'm very grateful as an ordinary person, and of course, in this capacity as the moderator for this series, to hear some of the insights that you've given us.
And as somebody who works for LATNIC and as an ISOC member, because Internet Society, This is what we are, internet, and you provide that. So thank you very, very much.
And I didn't take too much time in reading Rob's bio. I got really excited, and that's why I changed hats when he spoke about his involvement with IPv6 deployment. But that is another conversation altogether. As I said, that's a different hat, but I was really glad to see that. And we could probably discuss that offline at another occasion.
Or on another session. So thank you very much. And now let me call on our chair, Niran, to talk about who's coming next week.
So next week we are having Dr. Keegan Bagan. He is the Public Relations Officer for the Doctors Medical Association, as well as he is the District Medical Officer for San Juan Laventille area. He's also one of the administrative doctors for the Northwest Regional Health Authority. And he will be discussing some of the challenges and some of the solutions that they had to implement due to the COVID-19 pandemic and how they have worked to embrace technology and have a very candid discussion possibly on, some of the shortcomings and challenges thereof.
Great. Cool. So that will be next week, which is the 20.
No,
what?
That'll be 29th. My bad.
Yes, it will be the 29th at 7 o'clock as usual. So next week, Thursday. So thank you, everybody who's been watching, both here and on Facebook and Twitter and Vimeo and Livestream and all the other places. And thank you very much, Robin. And I think that's it for us tonight. So bye.
Bye, folks.
Take care.
Bye.